It's important to recognize that both the light and dark sides of human nature are inherently a part of us. It's part of who we are, and thinking either good or evil is an overly simplistic way of looking at it. We are all the sum total of our dark and light impulses, of all the things that make us up, both our noble and ignoble identities. Light and dark are sometimes analogous to good and evil, but generosity can be a pathway to evil, however unintentionally it may lead there. And greed can potentially lead one towards good, towards generosity, towards giving back more than one takes. Not always, of course, but sometimes. Things that we think will lead to good or evil because they exhibit the signature signs of light or dark, for example, generosity versus greed, or anger versus kindness. These things, they don't necessarily lead to good or evil. They simply are what they are. They're simply parts of us. They're simply parts of our emotional spectrum, there are impulses. They're the things that drive us and make us feel, but what we do with them determines whether they're good or evil. What determines whether they amount to good or evil is the actions that we choose to undertake consciously, and are both directed by those emotional impulses, but also using those emotional impulses as fuel for those conscious acts of will. If we use those conscious acts of will the correct way, if we remain aware of them, if we allow ourselves to be guided but not mastered by our light and dark impulses, then we can use them correctly and use them to achieve outcomes that we consider to be good or evil. Because ultimately it all boils down to whether each individual, according to his or her own moral code, believes something to be good or evil. I certainly do believe in objective morality. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that we all have different interpretations of the one true objective morality, and we have to allow ourselves to be more master of the things that we are not necessarily in conscious control of. Those things that we are not consciously in control of, that we simply feel, the light and dark impulses within ourselves. Those things can be dangerous or helpful. If we keep our mind on objective morality, what we all know deep down to be objectively right and wrong, if we keep our minds on that, focus it through the lens of our personal sense of morality, which is to say the more subtle things, the things on the periphery of total morality, the things that we disagree on. Most people can agree on the core tenets of morality, what something obviously good is or something obviously evil is. Most people can agree on those things, but then we all have our own individual sense of what's good and evil, but we rarely agree completely on those things. We each have our own special flavor of what we consider to be good and evil on the periphery, the little things, the things that aren't so clear-cut, the things that involve complex situations that people frequently disagree on. Even if they agree in the broad strokes and they agree on core morality, they may disagree with those smaller things. They may not agree on exactly what is good and evil. They may agree broadly, but when it comes to the specifics, they may not completely have a concurrence. When we allow that light and dark within us to express itself and guide it correctly, using our own sense of personal morality as a prism for it, and maintain our control over those impulses, then we can lead ourselves, lead our actions towards the pure morality more completely. Something that might seem as good objectively as the lighter aspects of ourselves, the more noble aspects of ourselves, if they're not controlled properly, can lead us to desolation and can lead not only to us being harmed, but others being harmed as well. And so it is with things that might seem objectively evil as well, like greed. And obviously, excessive greed is not a good thing, but greed in the sense of ambition, of desire, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It can certainly lead to bad outcomes, but it can also lead one to have the ability to do good for others if their ambition leads them to acquire the power that allows them to do good through their conscious will. And there's no way of knowing necessarily which of these outcomes our impulses, our light and dark natures could lead us to. That's why we have to be careful, and we have to be master of those impulses. We have to let our intellect guide and master our emotions. As tempting as it is to let our emotions rule us, our emotions are an essential part of us. They are perhaps the most important part of what makes us human, but our intellect is what allows us to fully enjoy and appreciate that side of humanity. That's what allows us to guide our emotional ship towards safe harbor. It prevents us from being wrecked on the rocks of recklessness and careless impulse. Our intellect is what guides us. We have to have the strength of will to use our intellect to master our emotions. If we can do this, then we can come closer to both our personal idea of what constitutes morality and, of course, the objective morality that almost all human beings share in common. Things like it's wrong to kill a human being without just cause. Most people, regardless of what they believe in terms of the small things, the specific things, the more subtle and complex things, what is right and wrong, most people can agree on something as basic in principle as that. They may disagree on exactly what constitutes just cause and things like that, but there are certainly cases where almost everyone of sound mind can agree that something is obviously not morally correct. And we can get closer to that point and reach a greater consensus among all of us, perhaps even smooth out the rough edges between us, and we can reach a more cohesive understanding in the small things, in the complex things. We can eventually lessen the disagreement between us when it comes to the more subtle and complex issues of morality, if we can use our own personal morality, our own prism, to filter the light of our emotions in a way that allows us to shine light on our inner selves and the inner selves of others, and illuminate more of ourselves, illuminate more of others, so that we can see each other and see what we each feel and believe deep down inside ourselves. When we can see more of that light emanating from ourselves and from others, then potentially we can broaden the scope of our individual understandings of common morality, of shared morality, of objective morality, what I choose to call objective morality, because it is the closest thing to ultimate true objective morality that we can find in real life, in human existence. True objective truth is a complicated thing. People don't necessarily agree that such a thing even exists, but If something is shared between the vast majority of human beings, it reflects a fundamental inner truth that has to be recognized and respected, even if one doesn't necessarily consider it to be 100% absolute, total, objective truth. But if we can shine that light, our emotional light, on ourselves and on others, using the prism of our personal morality to illuminate the parts of ourselves that reflect objective morality, in the sense that I've spoken of it, then we can understand each other, and ultimately perhaps humanity can achieve a better, cohesive understanding of the things we share, of the things we all know to be right and wrong, the things that we all share deep down because they're simply part of human nature. They're simply part of who we are on a genetic level. They are human truth. They're human truths. And to deny them would be to deny objective reality. The more we can illuminate those parts of ourselves, the more we can understand ourselves and each other, the more that we can become one, and the more that we can lessen the differences in our understandings of right and wrong. The less injustice there will be, because the more we agree on what justice consists of, the more we can see ourselves clear to making that justice a reality in the world around us. The more we can focus all of our efforts on achieving that justice, that shared justice, that I believe, we will eventually all come to a great degree of understanding, perhaps not a perfect degree of understanding. There will always be disagreements, and people will always have different perspectives, which is, of course, completely good, and it's just part of being human. It's part of what makes humanity humanity, the differences of opinion. But for the large part, I believe we can eventually come to a more cohesive understanding of justice and good, and we can focus our efforts, we can pool our efforts, we can stop fighting each other over the little things, because we will agree more, we will see each other's perspectives, and we will find compromises, and we will share our perceptions of the little things, what makes the little things right and wrong, more completely. More of the little things will become part of the objective truth, because we will agree more and more as we understand each other more and more.